it's a lot easier for a kid to say, I'm going to boxing, I'm learning how to fight, than going to say like the golf club and saying, I'm just sorry mate, I can't run your drugs tonight, I'm going to the driving range. Like, no disrespect to golf, but there's something about boxing that makes that an easier conversation to have. So Alex Le Guével, Head of Community Development at Matchroom Boxing, also part of Kieran Conway's corner team. So I've been involved in the professional ranks for quite some time. Met Eddie and Frank firstly out in Dallas and around the Canelo and Billy Joe undercard when Kieran boxed Sullivan Sissoko. And then pitched what is now my actual role here at Matchroom at that time, sort of 2.5 years ago.
How did that pitch go? How did you sell it to him?
I sort of just thought, I don't want to be one of these people that makes up the numbers. I want to, you know, I've got a vision, I believe in it, I want to make it happen. So when I spoke to Frank, he's a very personable guy. He's very, like, you know, he's very receptive to good ideas. So Frank and I had a little discussion, exchanged numbers. Stayed in touch, as I say, for sort of like 2.5 years, and got to 5 years at England Boxing, and I was kind of like looking for a new challenge, like what could be next. I'm very ambitious, and obviously I had this whole idea of what I wanted to do with Matchroom. Yeah, Frank and I arranged to have a call, and there you go, here I am today, and we're sort of breathing new life into amateur boxing via the platform we have at Matchroom, which is just massively exciting.
So what's the statistics so far of what you've done? How much money's been raised? How many clubs have you been to?
So we've visited, it must be, the last count when we did an infographic was around 22. It must be approaching about 30 clubs now that we've visited and actually done Matchroom in the community event, so to speak, at. Huge sums of money, you know, amounts that are truly going to change the game, to be honest with you. And that partnership is right at the forefront of the vision that I had when I first came into post. So to see that happening now is amazing. And obviously we've done the standalone projects with the Lynn, where we saved Lynn AC last year. That was a £10,000 donation via the charitable foundation, the Matchroom Charitable Foundation. And we also donated £7,000 to the Lion Boxing Academy. Two clubs that have got a long, history and association with Matchroom, but incredible stories of clubs, you know, both in London, but with, you know, just a rich history and tradition in the sport. It's amazing to have played a part in saving the Lynn and sort of the re-emergence of the Lion. So,
what effects have you seen with kids? Have you got any case studies?
Thousands. So, you know, over the years, it would literally probably be like tens of thousands, the amount of gyms that I've visited. Sometimes, like, I even think back to like Belfast recently, when we were there at the start of this year and the back end of last year, the reception that we received. I remember going to an amateur boxing show with Sonny Edwards, obviously headlining this week's event here in Birmingham. The reception that Sonny and myself, which was kind of weird for me at the time, received when we went to the Antrim 12s, which is basically their equivalent of the development championships. We went down, totally unannounced. Obviously everyone was like, oh my God, Sonny's here, this is incredible. Everyone got photos, and you see just how important it is to connect role models with the community, and you see that impact it has in the young people. It inspires them. So to be able to do that, where we've taken, you know, Johnny Fisher, Sky Nicholson, you name it, all the fighters we've taken out into the community and done great stuff with. It's that little hook of inspiration that you see. That could be the one thing. Maybe that kid's having a tough time at home. Maybe they don't have role models at home or in their lives. So we're able to provide that. And then some of them we've invited to shows. They come backstage, they come and meet Eddie, they come and meet some of the other fighters. They meet the teams, they learn what the sport's about. You know, I even think on a kind of more in-depth level, we had a young lad called TJ McKee from Street Games. So he came to one of our shows last year in Newcastle, and TJ's a young advisor. He's 17 years old, came to us on the first day, and you're just like, this kid's good. He's got a lot of potential. He's had a tough life, really supportive parents, but he's a tough kid from the northeast. So he was given the opportunity to come backstage with us, got an interest in the kind of stuff that you guys do in terms of that content creation and interviewing. The kid was so good that I just thought, you know what, you can produce a piece for our YouTube channel at 17. So we went out to a club who had an amateur boxing show, Easter on ABC. Frank Smith was there, Cyrus Pattinson was there. TJ led the whole thing. He presented to camera, he showed the kid from the northeast, showcasing boxing in the northeast, which for me is what it's all about. Authentic, and for his CV, he's not done too bad out of it as well.
That's incredible.
Yeah, so really, there's all sorts of cool stuff like.
Yeah. Have you seen any kids really just change their lives around because of boxing?
100%, like dozens. You know, there's a particular kid that I remember. I'm from Northampton. There's the gym that I used to go to, King's Heath Boxing Club. When I first started. It's where I first met Kieran, James, and all the guys there. There was a young lad who was getting in a bit of trouble at school, and actually the boxing club had just started going into that school to deliver sessions for kids that are, maybe at risk of going down the wrong path. And this lad, he'd been identified as a kid with a lot of potential, but he was going down a path that maybe it could lead to other more negative influences. So you got that his reward for good behaviour at school were those boxing sessions, and then we created a kind of school club link where if you behave yourself at school, then you can go to the boxing club, you can do the boxing session at school, and then you can go to the boxing club. And you just saw this transition of the kid from, being a little bit, probably a bit of a bully around school, like he's a big lad, to then going to the boxing club and, learning about discipline, respect, making friends from different types of communities that maybe you wouldn't have interacted with at school. These boxing clubs are melting pots. Everyone goes there from all different walks of life. When you go to the boxing gym, you walk through those doors and everyone's the same. So it kind of instilled this newfound sense of respect and just being a decent human being, to be honest. And the difference you saw in like a 1, 2, 3 year period in that young man was just, life changing. So
what is it about boxing specifically that appeals so well to troubled kids, especially?
I think for me, there's a research paper probably about 10 years ago produced by called the Walker Research Project. And there's a line in there talking about how boxing tackles gritty social problems. If you're a kid that you might be a part of a gang, but then you can go to a boxing gym, it's almost like a positive version of a gang. So it's a lot easier for a kid to say, I'm going to boxing, I'm learning how to fight, than going to, say, like the golf club and saying, I'm just sorry, man, I can't run you drugs tonight, I'm going to the driving range. Like, no disrespect to golf, but there's something about boxing that makes that an easier conversation to have. It has a unique kind of power, and I guess also that situationally, boxing clubs are 40% of boxing clubs are in the top 20% of the most deprived communities. So as a result of that, you're finding that the young people in these areas are maybe at more risk of crime, antisocial behaviour, unemployment, obesity, all these kind of like issues that we face in the UK today. And I think just purely out of coincidence, those kids, the boxing gyms are there, so they find themselves going there and then they tackle those problems. So I think there's like, there's different elements that link to it, but there's something about the sport that's just unique.
The sport itself, as an individual sport, it teaches the kid, like you said, discipline. It makes them feel, it makes you self-reflect on your own life, where you might before have been smoking and drinking at 14 and selling weed, but all of a sudden you're like, oh, I'm looking up to Sonny Edwards, who came in the gym last week,
yep,
and he's eating clean, and he's drinking 4 litres of water a day, and he doesn't smoke. So you've got that path of you're looking up at these people, especially what you're doing where you're connecting stars with the gyms now.
Mm-hmm.
It's not just kids going to the amateur gyms, they're now seeing the progression.
Yeah, and they're so relatable as well because they've walked those same shoes. So literally on Friday night we were down at Birmingham City Boxing Club with the Affis, leading into this obviously huge fight week in Birmingham. And there's a line that I remember writing this morning in the article where I was listening to the kind of content piece that we produced from it. And it's literally Cowie Affi explaining that, yes, we've taken over the gym from Frank O'Sullivan, coach there 69 years. We owe everything to Frank and what he's done. They want to carry on that legacy. The fact is they grew up in the road, the street behind that gym. If they can do it, they can come from that gym, and it's not just one brother, it's all three. They've gone on to achieve incredible things in the amateurs and the pros. If they can do it from living on the street next to the gym, there's nothing to say those young kids from that same area now can't go on to do exactly the same thing. There's something about boxing where the boxers are so relatable to the young people, they don't forget their roots. You look at AJ, he's probably the biggest star that's come out of British boxing in the last decade or so, and you look at what he's done, repeatedly giving back to his old amateur club at Finchley.
His last fight,
the open workout, exactly. Like he's still so connected with them. I know, there's the well-known story about how he obviously paid for their minibus to get the kids around, and numerous other donations that he probably doesn't even say much about because that's how the guy is. So, there is this connection between the fighters and the young people where that's just very, very different to other sports. And also, when you think about it, if you were a young footballer, what are the chances you walk into the football club and you get to train next to, whoever is, the stars at the moment in that Premier League club? Whereas in a boxing gym, the chances are you could end up fighting next to watching AJ spar or train next to your heroes. You can do the day 5K and come and run with them as well. So, there's so many different ways that the sport's a lot more accessible.
You see a lot of these kids, not with very many opportunities, in environments where they are selling drugs, they are becoming mules, or they are money laundering, and they are carrying knives. March 2024, there was a paper saying 50,000 knife crimes were reported. 50,000. which is obscene.
Yeah.
That's only what's been reported. When you think about how many people get stabbed and don't go to the police, you're looking at a much higher number.
Yeah.
How many of those kids last week know someone that's been affected by knife crime, know someone that, you know, could have been stabbed to death? My editor, his best mate was stabbed to death. You can't predict it, but when you choose that life as a kid and you don't know any different, it's very, very difficult. With Matchroom in the community, how do you see that in the next few years, tackling these problems such as knife crime and getting the kids out of the drug game?
I think if you were to narrow it down to one thing, it would be greater investment into grassroots sport, and obviously for us it's boxing, but also the other sports that we work with across the group. And what that does is that if there's a greater level of investment, it increases the level of service that the clubs are able to provide, those diversionary activities that take those kids away from those activities. And also, I guess, the other element to it is we have such a huge platform to be able to amplify the amazing benefits. People make these justifications of the sport that it's kind of barbaric. It's, you know, why would you just go down and fight? It's not about that. Like, you know, I think it's when I was at England boxing, there was the statistic was always like, yeah, for every one competitive boxer, there's about 7 or 8 recreational boxers who are just going to keep fit or to make friends or have fun and just socialise and interact with other young people. So it's how we can change perceptions of the sport that in a way like no one else can. You know, it's I've spoken in other interviews before about kind of it's almost like in boxing people talk about going to the head and going to the body. So like what we want to do is we want to go to the body in terms of going to the heart with the stories, the sort of the content that, you know, Alex Haynes and the team can create, which is just the best in the business. These kind of content pieces that really like a Rocky movie, it really grabs your heart and pulls at your heartstrings. So you're kind of emotionally bought in on that topic. But then what we also need to do is we need to go to the head with the statistics, the data, the research, the insight that's going to back that up. Because it's all well and good, we can tell these amazing stories, but there's no point Eddie going into Parliament and telling these incredible stories about how boxing has changed lives if you don't have the data and statistics to back it up. So that's what we're doing. It's a huge part of what we're doing with Empire Fighting Chance as well, in terms of essentially bringing all the kind of data and research into a pot. We tool Eddie up with all of the possible, you know, knowledge and insight that he needs, and then we let him loose in Parliament, and he can sell the benefits of boxing like no one else. So and that's what I believe will change the game, because we have the kind of toolkit and, you know, the person at the end who's going to deliver the message that no one else does.
Yeah, and you couldn't have a better speaker than Eddie. So.
No, it's an easy job. When you're providing Eddie with a little bit of a briefing to go away, it's a pretty easy job.
Do you think boxing should be in schools?
100%. It's and I don't think it should just be a case of schools going, oh yeah, we've got a bunch of naughty kids, let them do boxing. I think that, you know, we could do female-only projects in schools to, you know, for females to learn self-defence. I think you can package boxing however you want to package it. And I think, again, it's a little bit short-sighted to just go, yeah, we've got some naughty kids, let's chuck them into a classroom and they do some boxing as a reward. Like, it works, it's great, but I think there's so many different ways that it can benefit young people. You know, one of the main ones being it's a really bloody hard workout. So, you know, if you want to get fit and want to make friends and, you know, all kind of go through this sort of shared experience of a really tough training session, then that's one. But I could list dozens and dozens of reasons why boxing should be in schools, and it should be everywhere. There's no sport quite like it, and I think in schools there's a unique place that it can play. Because also, like, there's this fascination with the sport as well that I sometimes speak about, because, you know, I love all sports. I love football, rugby, you name it. I love every sport. But there's a level of fascination if you think, like, going back to the thing that makes boxing so interesting. If there's a fight at school in the playground, you think back to it, everyone crowds around, everyone watches. Like, so everyone's fascinated in it. You know, it's teaching people what that actually is, how you need to actually be able to defend yourself, and you need to, you know, you don't just go and if you do want to have a fight, then let's have a fight properly and do it in a controlled and safe manner. So I think there's really very important messages that boxing could instill in people in schools.
And when you see people that are trained, you don't see them out on the street starting fights. The only people you will see on a Saturday night in a pub are the untrained or people with big egos that are maybe a bit off, you know? When you see someone that has been trained, for example, let's say you're in school and you've learned for a few years, you're humbled. It puts you in a position of knowing that you can be helpless and you can be confident. And teaching that as a whole to these kids, especially like if you were to do it in schools, they're all going to come out so much better in life.
It's that level of respect for the sport. That if you've never tried boxing, you won't understand. But if you've done a training session, whether it's contact or non-contact, you will have a level of respect for the sport and what it takes. Like for me, I've been around so many professional fighters. You know, a professional fighter is one of my best friends. I see what they put themselves through. I see the training sessions that, you know, from schoolboys to juniors to youths to seniors. I see the amount of work and dedication that, you know, those young people you know, male or female, whatever background they're from, that they put into their craft. And there's a level of respect that you have for those as athletes that I think all young people would benefit from, and seeing it's that level of sacrifice. You know, if you want to be a boxer, then it's not like you've got 14 other men like you would in a rugby team that can bail you out. You've got to put the hard work in, and you learn that, you know, if you don't work hard, then you don't get out what you should get, and that's a lesson that everyone can take into life in all sorts of different ways. You know, there's no substitute for hard work. It's the first thing it's instilled you at Matchroom. You know, it's you can have a good idea, you can run with it, but the main thing is just work hard consistently, and believe in yourself. And I think boxing teaches that to everyone.
One of the biggest things I hear people say that they finally try boxing is, I didn't know 3 minutes could be so long, or 2 minutes.
The first time I went to a boxing gym, I played rugby to a pretty high level when I was younger, and I always went down. I was probably one of these people. I thought, oh, you know, I'll go down. I'm not going to I wasn't arrogant enough to think I was going to be the best, but I thought I'm quite fit. I've played sport to a high level. I'll probably be all right. You know, 20 seconds in, I'm like, oh my God, this is hard work. And it's that within 20 seconds, I've learned that respect for the sport. And I think, as I say, all young people can benefit from that experience. You know, whether it's in a boxing gym or whether it's in different sports as well, just like giving it your all and throwing yourself into something. But yeah, there's just something about boxing. It can really just change people. It does. It transforms people's lives, and in so many different ways. You know, it could be that you're going through something difficult in your personal life and you're struggling with your mental health, or you just need to go and hit a bag and let some frustration out. You know, boxing can be that one thing that really just sort of gets you back on a positive path.
How can boxing help knife crime? How can, especially with what you're doing with Matchroom in the community, how can that help lower knife crime and raise awareness and get people off the streets?
Well, again, I think it's getting young people into a positive space rather than being out in the streets, you know, where you're going to be tempted to defend yourself with a knife, or to engage in a bit of, you know, maybe engage in activities where you might feel like you need to protect yourself, or even, you know, go and attack someone with a knife. I think if you're in a boxing gym, then for that whatever amount allocated time that you're in the boxing gym, that's not going to happen. So the more time that we can get young people into a boxing gym or a football club or a cricket club, whatever it is they're doing, into sport as an outlet for that, I think it's I think that will be a positive use of their time. As I say, with boxing, the unique link there is because of that 40% of boxing clubs in the top 20% of the most deprived communities, because, as I said earlier, in those communities, you're going to see a higher rate of crime, higher rate of antisocial behaviour, higher rate of kind of unemployment and educational kind of underprivileged. So, just you will, as a sort of a link to that, you will find that those young people are probably a higher sort of propensity of getting involved in those negative influences in their lives. So boxing can be that hook that really changes their lives, and, you know, allows them to do something for the better, really.
Brilliant. Well, thank you for your time.
Pleasure.
I look forward to seeing over the next few years what you do.
Thank you very much. Pleasure, mate. Top man.